So today, instead of the normal, bringing a deck that we know is going to win, what we're going to do is we're going to spend the first little bit of this stream talking about how I build my decks, my deck building process. It's going to hopefully be a resource to try and help some people as they're getting into the game, especially with like Agmar and some of the insane scenarios that are coming out for that require some deck building. So I've come up with, I think it's about a 5-step, and it's not really steps. It's more of a circular reference with feedback loop type situation that we'll talk through, and then we'll put it into practice. We'll build a deck for this scenario and then run it through. So that's kind of the idea for this stream today. Istari is excited to see it. You have not done this yet. Oh, you haven't played this one yet. This one is very rich in lore. It feels very kind of similar to the book. So Fodder, you need this in your life. You need this specific scenario or the deck building ideas. I'm really excited for this one. This one's really cool. There is a way to play with the campaign mode, which we are not doing, but I could see me revisiting this once we do open up the Black Riders box. So this one says that, I don't know, these are all over the place. It can be part of a standalone adventure to play part of the Lord of the Rings campaign, and then there's information on how to do that, and it kind of falls, I think, within the Black Riders area. The deck building help. Okay, awesome. So let's talk about it. So the deck building for Lord of the Rings is a little bit different than than the other two games that I normally play. So Marvel Champions and and Arkham Horror. So with Marvel Champions, a lot of the times there are scenarios at this point where you do need to, I'm going to use the phrase tech. So that when I say that, I mean build specifically for a scenario. So you're teching against the scenario. You are actively looking at trying to mitigate the specific scenario risk. However, for the majority of Marvel Champions games, you're trying to play off the strengths and then kind of run into multiple different scenarios. There may be a campaign or just to take a deck and play, because that's kind of how the game is set up for at least standard and some experts. The Arkham Horror is very, very different because you are building a deck for multiple games through a campaign, and you're upgrading that deck as you're going through, and sometimes you don't always know what situations you're going to find yourself in, and so you need to kind of be a little bit more balanced. But with Lord of the Rings, these scenarios are notoriously difficult. The scenarios are very unique and very different, and therefore it can require a very specific deck to be built for it. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about Lord of the Rings, is how unique and how challenging it is, and how much you kind of need to deck build. So let's talk about the steps. And again, these are kind of how I evaluate them in order, but they always have a feedback loop, and we'll see this in the practice. We're going to go through all 5 of the steps, and then we're going to put it into practice. But starting out, I just look at the scenario and see what all is happening. So for example, before we're not actually going to dive into it right now, but you look and see that, okay, there's a lot of 2A scenarios, so something's doing that. I look at kind of the quest points, and it's like, oh, there's not any quest points really on these cards. It's 0 -- and then this one's 18. The last stage is 18. That's upside down, sorry. So we're probably going to need some sort of questing, but just based off this initial look, maybe not. Maybe we don't need a huge amount of questing potential. And then I'm going to look through the encounter cards. So we go through each one of these, check to see, are there a ton of enemies? Are there a lot of locations? Are there a lot of treacheries? And kind of get an idea of what that distribution in the deck looks like, and start to think, if it's full of locations, we are probably going to need something that can deal with locations. And so we'll look at that here in a second. After I kind of get that, and that's probably the most generic part of this deck building. going in blind is half the fun for all three of the LCGs. And I used to do that. I used to do that for the Lord of the Rings LCG, where I would take the deck that I previously had run in the previous campaign and run it through. And that is fun. I still do that sometimes, but a lot of times I just kind of look at it. I don't really read any of the story. I just try and read some of the, like, what's going on. To help build the deck. Or yeah, you can take a deck that you like and enjoy playing and run through it with that. But so that's kind of the first thing. After that, I need to look at what spheres I'm going to run, and so I will narrow it down to probably two, maybe two or three spheres. Probably not going to do one sphere. And once I understand what spheres need to be run, I'm going to be looking at any particular heroes or cards that trigger the quest. So this is going to be, like I was saying, like if there's a ton of locations, we may want to be running some northern trackers, which deal with locations in the staging area and help us deal with that threat a little bit. If we want to do that and there's a lot of questing, then we're probably going to want to run a spirit sphere. If there's a ton of enemies, we're probably going to be looking at tactics and start narrowing it down that way. And then we'll figure out what heroes we want to do. So like in the last scenario that I did, which was the Battle of the Five Armies, I was running Thalon. I think that's Thalon. Because I knew that he was going to be questing a lot, and whenever Thalon. So whenever he is committed to a quest, we deal damage to each enemy as they are revealed from the encounter deck. And because I knew I was questing with both my attack and defense, because we had siege and battle quest, then Thalon, his ability plays really well into that, because usually this ability is kind of hindered by his low willpower. So that's kind of what I think about. And at that point, I also start to try and think about what my starting threat is going to be. So a lot of the times I will look and see, are there any of these enemies that are going to be very detrimental if I flip them on turn 1 and they engage me? So is there something that has a 32 threat that I think the hill troll is something around there? So if we're running against a hill troll, if that engages us on turn 1, is it an immediate scoop? If so, I try and shoot for my target threat to be below that certain enemy. And then I try and figure that out. If there's a specific card, or if there's a specific hero that I'm looking for, then I'm looking for other heroes that can complement that with the threat mitigation. Then after I have kind of picked my heroes, and again, feedback loop. Istari, I so agree on the threat and what enemies come up first. Can I handle them? Exactly, right? So if you are running into a situation where it's like your starting threat is 35 and most of the enemies engage at 30 or lower, then maybe we need to look and change one of those heroes, or have a hero that can deal with one of those enemies somehow. So can that be Frodo, and he can raise your threat, but then you have a really high threat and you have to work on getting that down. And that kind of brings me to the next point that I look at, and that is, are there cards that are going to play off of our heroes? So if I'm running a dwarf deck, there are a lot of dwarf cards that I'm going to be kind of narrowing my card pool. I'm not going to be throwing a lot of Gondor, readies or Gondor cards into my deck. I'm going to be looking for the cards that trigger with dwarfs, like Evermight Heart Rises. So at this point, I've kind of looked through and I see, not necessarily this scenario specifically, but I see that there's a lot of underground and then there's a lot of mountain locations. I'm running a dwarf deck, so Evermight Heart Rises says that whenever I travel to one of those locations, I get to ready the dwarf and decrease my threat by 1. Excellent combo on the dwarfs, especially for this scenario. However, like just briefly thumbing through this one, there are no mountain and underground locations, so I'm not going to be ever run that card because it would never trigger. So I kind of look for different cards that synergize well off of different heroes. Am I running an Aragorn? Is Aragorn one of my heroes? Then I'm going to probably be looking at the Celebrian Stone, or the sword that was broken, or some of these other attachments that can only be attached to Aragorn or get an additional benefit when they are attached to Aragorn. So kind of having an idea of what those are in your mind, and also utilizing Rings DB, which is not, if you're on Twitch watching right now, I don't have a good way to link that, but it will be in the video of the YouTube video, or the description of the YouTube video, where you can go and put in the cards that you have by clicking on each pack, and then you can search. So you can say like card text contains Aragorn, and so that will bring up all the cards that play off of Aragorn in some way. And so that's another really good way to start just building that knowledge and understanding what kind of cards in your pool work well. I highly recommend this binder approach, where I have one copy of each card in the binder, and it's almost like a comic book, right? I'm reading these, and as I'm thumbing through, I'm looking to see, it's like, ooh, dwarf hero. Okay, so if I'm running Durin, you know, this may be, well, obviously Durin's Song, that's kind of funny. Durin's Song may be good if you run Durin. Play if you control at least one dwarf hero. And so I'm starting to look at this and seeing if some of these catch my eyes for the heroes that I'm running. After that, I usually this is not a lot of the deck. This is a very small part of the deck, because there aren't a lot of cards that are kind of hero specific. Dwarfs have a lot of them, Rohans have a lot of them, but after that I start to fill out the deck with what I would consider like the core cards. And there are a couple questions that I ask myself, like, how are you going to get money? Are you going to be able to run with just the bare amount, no additional money present, or are you going to need to run like Steward of Gondor? Or are you going to be running what's the horn card in Tactics? I can never remember the name of that card. It's the 1-cost horn of Gondor. There you go. Are you going to be running Horn of Gondor? Is that how you're going to be generating resources and building an economy? But kind of having an idea of how you're going to get more cards than onto the table than just what you are going to be collecting, like the 3 resources each round, that is going to be critical. Then, if you're playing a lot of cards, how are you going to get more cards? So the next thing that I look at is card draw. Are there things that, what can I do to build in card draw? How am I going to go through this giant deck more than one card around? And so this is where that feedback loop starts to come back in, right? So am I going to be running Barravir? Like, Barravir has an excellent card draw. Or Bilbo. Can I be running Bilbo to get me that card draw? Or if I'm outside of the lore, am I running Ancient Mathen or something like that? Or, which is the attachment, where is it? It's the attachment in Spirit that after you explore a location, you get to draw some cards. Or in Tactics, I'm looking at Foehammer. After a hero you attacks and destroys an enemy, draw 3 cards. Card draw is so critical in this game. It's not resources, it's not like it is in Marvel, and it's not being able to commit them to skill tests, but like it is in Arkham. But it provides flexibility and gets you what you need when you need it, because you're not discarding your hand. You don't have a hand limit. You want to try and pack the hand as full as you can. Generally speaking, there are probably some quests where you don't want to do that. Generally speaking, so that you have the tools you need to be successful in the game. After I figured out how I'm doing card draw, how am I going to manage threat? This is typically going to be kind of Galadriel's Greeting, Ever My Heart Rises. If you're running dwarfs, then Nori is, or Dwalin's excellent. Nori is excellent, but you need some way to manage threat and make sure that you are not going to threat out before you can actually draw the cards and do and pay for all of them. You know, like Aragorn's a really good one. Spirit Aragorn, or Lore Aragorn, is a really good one, where at one point in the game you can reduce your threat to your starting threat. And so just kind of having an understanding of how much threat mitigation you have, because then there are cards that can play off of that increase threat. So like Aragorn and Frodo pair really well together, because Frodo increases your threat by, instead of taking damage, and then Aragorn can reset it once per game. And so trying to figure out how I can get my threat way down, because threat's always going to be good. The threat mitigation's always going to be good. And again, feedback loops. Next question is, how am I going to deal with enemies? Or do I need to deal with enemies? Right? So in some of these decks, in some of these encounters, there are not a lot of enemies, and you can kind of dance around them and maybe deal with them in a non-direct way, like a forest snare. Like, that can be your answer to how you deal with enemies, is forest snare. Or it can be tactics, right? I'm gonna run Bjorn, and just go crazy and attack everything and kill everything. It's like, excellent. But you have to have a way to deal with enemies, and you have to have a way to deal with locations, and you have to have a way to deal with questing. And so it's kind of this whole like balancing scenario. And in true solo, this is so tough. The last kind of thing that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about what cards I'm putting into my deck, if I'm running leadership, I'm running sneak attack Gandalf. I'm probably going to be running Gandalf no matter what. So Gandalf is going in pretty much every single one of my decks. So I'm basically building a 47 card deck. I probably should have said that a little bit earlier. Core Gandalf is just incredible, and you are never disappointed to see him. If you're running leadership, then I'm probably running sneak attack as well, just to kind of get maybe 6 entrances of Gandalf every single round. But the last thing of cards in my deck is, how am I going to deal with treachery cards? So treachery cards or shadow cards, and how I'm going to deal with those effects, and if they are bad enough that I need to make sure I'm attacking against them. So I would be looking for like hasty stroke to cancel the shadow card effects, or I'm looking at a test of will to cancel treachery effects as when they're revealed. There are some heroes that can probably deal with it, and so just trying to figure out if I need to look at them. I usually just thumb through the deck and see if are there any treacheries that are game ending for me? Are there any treacheries that if I draw, I'm done? It's a scoop at that point. Probably. In a lot of these scenarios, that's very likely. Are there any shadow effects that are just insanely tough? And if they are really tough, then also during gameplay, if I only have one hasty stroke, I'm hanging on to that just in case I do draw it. So those are kind of the cards that I'm looking at the deck. Once I have that, I like to put it into Rings DB, or just thumb through it if you're really good at math, but I prefer to utilize the technology that's available. Throw it into Rings DB and kind of get a feel for, because then it will spit out all these graphs and you can get a good feel for how much resources are you overcosted. You have 46 leadership cards. It's like, okay, well, I'm running a Tri-Sphere deck. I probably should try and balance that out or add more leadership heroes. There are 2 fixes to that problem. And the overcosting, so it's like your cost in leadership is like really high. It skews really far to the right. How are you going to do that? Are you going to deal with that by adding Steward and increasing your economy and building that up and bringing that to a level where it is sustainable to play those high cost cards? Are you gonna maybe switch out the lore hero for another leadership hero, and then you're getting 2 leadership resources every turn and you're doubling your income? So I love that tool. Rings DB is an excellent tool. I highly recommend that you're using that as you're building decks, and also just if you are completely new to it. I learned so much by going on and looking at decks and playing them. So I think one of the main decks, and I should have looked this up before I started the stream, but it was like the ultimate 1 core set deck, because when I started playing, the core set was the smaller box, and it didn't have multiple copies of every card, so you couldn't run 3. And so I played that deck. I got an understanding for how it was supposed to work, and then I started tinkering with it for each scenario, and just learning from that and utilizing those tools are really helpful. So those are kind of the steps. Let's put it into action. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I have read through some of these cards just to make sure that this would be a good one for us to play and that it would be fun, but it does look really fun. And so basically we're starting out by putting a couple of these big cards outside out of play that are probably going to come in later. So Withy Windle is going to be immune to player card effects, and we are revealing an additional encounter card while it's out on the table. Don't really like that. And then Old Man Willow is a 3/5/4 12. It's indestructible, it's immune to player card effects, and while it attacks, we have to discard a random location from the victory display and raise our threat by X, where X is the victory points on that card. So these are going to come in at some point, and I'm going to have an answer to this guy attacking. I assume he's going to be attacking me every turn because I'm playing solo, so he's probably going to be engaged with the first player, and so I'm going to need to have an answer for a 5 attack each round. Is that going to be a huge defense hero, or is that going to be a lot of allies? Are we going to just sacrifice the allies to Old Man Willow? Not quite sure yet. So, and then Witherwill. So we cannot win the game while this is in play, so we are going to have to figure out how to get through this. So we're going to need some good questing. We're going to need some good questing potential. So there's that. Then we shuffle the encounter deck. We draw 1 card and advance to a random stage 2A. Like that tells me probably our 2As are not going to be super fun to deal with. And these are all, they all have the same win revealed. Number of locations in the staging area is less than the number of players in the game. Search the encounter deck and discard pile for a location added to the staging area. Shuffle the deck. And then all of these have a force response at the end, or just bad things that happen. Then after placing progress as a result of questing successfully, if there are X or more total victory points on locations in the victory display, advance to stage 3A. Otherwise, advance to a different randoms 2A. X is the number of players in the game times 5. So in a single player game, we're going to need to put 5 progress tokens on quest 2B. Or no, actually, I'm sorry. We're going to need to get 5 victory points into the victory display. And so there's probably going to be, hopefully there's going to be a lot of cards in this deck that have victory cards or victory points on it. And then the Wicked Willow, we add those 2 bad cards into the staging area. And then we actually don't add any cards because it's X-1. I love seeing that. That's a beautiful sentence. We add X-1 cards to the staging area. Maybe my favorite sentence we've ever read. And then Old Man Willow cannot leave the staging area, but he's considered to be engaged with each player. Okay, so he is attacking. He's indestructible, so we can't kill him. So we just kind of have to sustain until we can push through. And then we are pushing through on 18. So right now what I'm thinking is we are going to want to spend a little bit of time on 2B. I haven't really read any of the bad effects. That may just be something that I get into once I have started the scenario, but probably want to spend a little bit of time on 2B to build up so that we are able to take a couple of hits while we push through, because 18 is a lot. 18 is a lot of quest. So I'm definitely going to be running a spirit, and yeah, so definitely a spirit hero. And I think that's probably fair for kind of any deck that I build. I have a really hard time not running spirit, because spirit just seems really good, especially in solo. So we have Tom Bombadil, who is really good and helps us when he comes in. So hopefully we'll be searching for that when there are things like this. So it says at the end of the round, so when you're revealed, choose a player. That player gains control of Tom. He is ready and committed to the quest. So excellent. At the end of the round, discard Tom and then shuffle the encounter deck into the encounter deck, or discard pile into the deck. This effect cannot be canceled. And so now I'm starting to think, okay, do I run like Astari's favorite character, which is Denethor? And because he's able to look at the top card and choose to either discard or put it on the bottom. I'm searching for Tom. I feel like the more often Tom comes out and helps us, the better off we are. And so maybe I want to start playing into, I want to understand and tech the deck a little bit. Sorry, so true. So now I'm just looking through some of these. When revealed at the end of the phase, raise each player threat by X, where X is the number of enemies in the staging area. Alrighty. Though something like that I'm not super concerned about. It's threat in this game is going to be raised. I know I need to figure out how to mitigate it someplace. If it's like raise your threat by 12, then it's like, okay, yeah, no, I need to be looking at that. But if it's like raise your threat by X, where X is probably going to be 3 or 4, it's like that can be detrimental, and that can definitely play into the gameplay of it, but not really the deck build. When revealed, discard all progress tokens from each location in the staging area. If there's a non-unique active location, randomly choose a location in the staging area and switch it with the active location. So that's teching against like a northern tracker. That's them teching against the northern tracker. So this could be a really good card to run Test of Will against, which we yeah, it could be a good card to run Test of Will against. It's kind of one of those gameplay decisions, but I still don't think that rules out Northern Tracker, which is the card that whenever you exhaust it to commit it to the quest, you place 1 progress token on each location in the staging area. So can clear out of the staging area without needing to travel, and can really just help that efficiency. Okay, so Song of Sleep. When revealed, remove a questing hero you control from the quest and attach Song of Sleep to that hero. It counts as a condition attachment with the text limit 1 per hero. Treat attached hero's printed text box as if it were blank, and an attached hero cannot ready. And it doesn't sound like there's any way to get rid of, I haven't seen any way. And so having 2 of those, I am going to be running because that takes a hero, that kills a hero. Unless there's a way to get rid of it, that effectively kills a hero. I mean, like, they still get the resources, but they're not providing the benefit to the team that they need to. And so since it's a condition attachment, my mind immediately goes over here to lore and Miner of the Iron Hills. Miner of the Iron Hills, whenever he enters play, you discard a condition attachment from a hero. Or just one that's in play. So I'm gonna probably be running Miner of the Iron Hills. I'm gonna go ahead and grab it just so I don't forget. But that is detrimental enough that if I draw it in the first turn, I want to either have a Test of Will or a Miner to get rid of it as soon as I can. Also, Miner is great because it's an ally and it can take a hit from Old Man Willow. Old Man Willow can beat up on the Miner. What do we got here? Falling Branches. Each player removes a character he controls from the quest and deals 2 damage to that character. That sucks, but it is. Peril. Choose a location in the victory display and return to the staging area. If no location was returned, this gains Surge. Okay, so what location clearing? I've seen a lot of locations. These all have victory points on them, and oh my gosh, we have half of our deck right here is locations. So at that point, it is a Northern Tracker play. Easy. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. None of these have anything that say that you cannot, they're immune to player cards effects or anything like that. And so we're definitely going to just go ahead and grab Northern Trackers. We need those. So we got 3 Northern Trackers, easy peasy. And then we got some enemies. Ooh, discard a non-objective attachment he controls. Army of Flies. These are kind of weak. These guys are not. After he engages a player, moves player X damage among characters. X is the number of locations in the victory display, so he gets worse as he goes along. So we're gonna need probably some late game. There's a good number of those. Either that, or we can run Forest Snares, right? But it's after he engages a player. Deal X. Ugh, I don't. Those are kind of tricky because I wasn't going to be running Tactics. I think we can still probably get away with not running Tactics, but those are kind of annoying. And then we got we got 4 of these. While it's in the staging area, I hate these types of monsters because it's like, okay, I see a 2. It's like, whatever this is, I'm probably just going to ignore it and just quest around it. But it says, well, it's in the staging area. And so you can't just leave it in the staging area. It gains force after the active location leaves play. This makes an immediate attack against the first player. So that's going to be a target for Gandalf easily, because Gandalf can deal 4 damage, and then maybe we engage and try and kill. But, okay, so trying to figure out where I can. The enemies are not horrible, so we're not gonna run tactics. We'll have to figure out how to deal with them, but that may just be an ally swarm. The treacheries are kind of bad, but really this scenario is built around, it looks like, a lot of these locations. So let's think about our heroes. So that's kind of the next step. As we went through, we pulled out a couple of cards that are going to be very crucial for this. And actually, because of here, because of all of these locations, we probably will want to run our Lorien guides as well. Lorien guides are similar to Northern Trackers, but after they commit to a quest, place 1 progress token on the active location. So let's go ahead and grab them, because we want allies, we want that, so that allows us to travel and not just rely on the Northern Trackers. So Lorien guide. Usually, if it's a non-unique card, I am looking to run 3 copies, and then at the end I'll probably come up with 60 to 65 cards, and then I'll go through and look to cut. And so I don't worry about the deck size when I first start out. I'm just trying to pull out all the cards that I think would be good against the scenario and would work really well against this scenario, and then I go back and cut it out. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So we have those, and we just kind of set those aside. We know we're running a blue hero, because we got a lot of allies, a lot of high cost allies. I think of high cost as anything really over 2/2. And then we may run a lore hero. I wouldn't say I'm set on running a lore hero, because there are cards like Song of Knowledge, whatever the song card is that gives us access to lore. There's other ways that we can get access to lore, so we're not locked into lore right now, but we are going to be locked into spirit. So let's take a look at our heroes. I don't want to run a dwarf deck, because I've been doing a lot of that, and they don't really have, they like mountains. So I'm looking at this. Glorfindel is always an excellent choice. And if I pick Glorfindel, then I'm going Light of Valinor, I'm going Asphaleth, I'm going all the cards that kind of combo well with Glorfindel. And again, use Rings DB to be searching for those cards and looking at, trying to search that card text for some of the cards that play off of that. Eowyn's always super solid, and she has a huge questing potential. So let's grab Eowyn. She's gonna do good things for us. And I grab a sleeve. So there's that. There aren't any specific heroes that play well off of Eowyn, but she does have the action where you can discard a card from your hand and give her a +1 willpower. And so I always like running a lore deck with Eowyn, because that means that I have a way to draw more cards, and that also helps with the whole minor situation to play those allies. So we got Eowyn at 9. The big bad enemy engages us at 30, and so we don't want to go too high, or we want to go really low with number 3. I really like Denethor here, but he doesn't help us with the card draw. But Denethor helps search for, it really helps get Bombadil Tom back into play quickly and easily. So that would be pretty nice. That'd be pretty nice. So we could run like a Denethor. We could run a Bisphere. This actually feels kind of like it would thrive in a Bisphere type situation. So instead of running a Trisphere, run higher cost and maybe run like a Barrevere and a Denethor, or run another blue hero. I really like Denethor here. And I do apologize, sorry for liking Denethor there, but here we are. The other thing would be like a Bilbo that would give us an extra card draw, or a Barrier to give us a lot of card draw. And honestly, Barrier seems really strong. Barrier seems really strong here, especially compared to Bilbo. We're not running a Hobbit deck. Hey, he's a great card with abilities. Can't deny. We'd still feed him to the Balrog though. Yeah, and you know what? We may just feed him to Old Man Willow here at the end if we know we have a win in our hand. But Denethor just seems really strong for this scenario. Yeah, we have to run Denethor. Because then we can switch out some of these treacheries that we see. We can switch out some of the monsters and just fish for the locations. So let's grab Denethor. We'll run a Denethor. Then we need a third hero or a way to draw cards. I'm enjoying the idea of running a Biosphere deck and just running either another lore or another spirit hero. And I'm kind of thinking we could run Asphalith, because he attaches to a Noldor or Sylvian hero, and we can exhaust him to place 1 progress token on any location, or 2 if the attached hero is Glorfindel. And so we run Asphalith Glorfindel. That's another spirit. So that just helps with the clearing out locations. There's also just a couple of... And the reason I'm having a hard time just not picking Barrier is I think we're going to be running to we're going to be wanting to run a heavier spirit deck because of the questing that's needed. And so being able to play some of these allies quickly is going to be nice. We can also run Song of Travel, which gives us the spirit resource. Glorfindel is also really nice to have because of his starting threat is 5. So with that really low starting threat, that does do good things. Let's just make a decision. Hey, Alice, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. Happy to have you here. I feel like... No, we're going to run Ancient Matin. That's going to be our card draw. Let's run another spirit resource, and let's just go heavy on spirit cards. And so let's run... Frodo is also a really solid choice here, because he can take every single one of Old Man Willow's hits and just raise our threat. And so he can defend. We'll run an Arwen. He can defend for 3. Old Man Willow is going to hit for 5+. And then we just raise our threat, and then we just work to bring that down. I think Frodo is probably our best option here. I also just really like Frodo as the hero. I like Frodo as a hero. And I run Glorfindel all the time because he's really, really good. So let's try a Frodo deck. Let's try Frodo, Denethor, Éowyn. What a unique combination. What an interesting run. So here we go. So there's our hero lineup. And we've got this. We want to run a couple of allies. Let's see if there's anything else in the spirit realm that we want. We'll take a Bofur, because Bofur is really good. So you can spend 1 resource and put him into play, ready to go against the or committed to the quest. He is a unique hero or ally, and so usually with unique I only grab 1 of them. That is a shift that I have made in the last couple cycles as my card pool has expanded. I used to run 3 of all the unique cards, and if there is like a unique ally that is critical to get out, then I'll run more of that. But Bofur is just really the unique allies are nice when you draw them. But I'm usually cutting cards, and the unique allies are the first ones to get cut. So we'll run a Bofur. Starry says, I like it. Glorfindel is easy to pick, so cool to mix it up, as you say. Yeah, and I mean, that's the other thing. It's all cooperative, and so have fun with it. We're definitely going to run Arwen. I think Arwen is a phenomenal ally. She says after she exhausts, choose a character. That character gains Sentinel and gets +1 until the end of the round. So, go 2 there. We'll just run 1. I'm going to set the other one aside because that she is kind of one of the... She is an ally that, you know, could be really nice to have around, like really early. So, we may want to do that. Alrighty. I grabbed Ancient Matin because we said that was going to be our card draw. Let's grab the 3rd copy of that. Then I'm going to run 3 copies of Gandalf. We'll just go... Ooh, actually... Overhill, Underhill Gandalf is an interesting choice here because of how much questing is needed. We also like the damage from Gandalf. Let's pull out 3 copies of standard Gandalf and then figure out how our threat's going to be looking. If we think that we can have a lot of mitigation on our threat, we may swap one of these for an Overhill, Underhill Gandalf, which he doesn't commit to the quest, and we keep him around if we spend 2 threat. Use threat as a resource. Elrond's Council for threat negation as a thought. Elrond's Council is really solid. Our one that would require us to have Arwen in play or another Noldor hero. So let's think of that. Let me grab Ancients. We did have a couple of really bad when revealed effects. So let's go ahead and grab a Test of Will. Because we can flip those and it could be game ending on turn 1, we'll just run 3 copies of that. And then we are going to probably be fairly flush with our blue resources, so we can cancel some less bad ones too later. Let's grab Elrond's Council just to keep it in our mind. Elrond's Council is the 0 cost card. Elrond's Council is so freaking good. So if you control a unique Noldor character, give another character +1 willpower till the end of the phase and lower your threat by 3. That combos so very well with Arwen, but it does require us to have her on the table. Test of Will. Do we have... I didn't really look at shadow effects. If there are no locations in the staging area, add this location to the staging area. That honestly could be good. I don't even know if I'd want to clear that. Maybe I would. No shadow. Attacking enemy gets +1. No shadow, no shadow. Defending player discards each ally card in his hand. Ooh, don't like that. Definitely going to be running some. I really like these cards. Attacking enemy gets +1 attack or +2 if it's an ally that's defending, and so that kind of really messes with the ally defense strategy. Return the attacking character to the staging area after this attack. Let's run 2 copies of Hasty Stroke. I feel like there aren't... Well, we are going to be shuffling these back into the deck because of Tom once he comes out. So let's run 2 copies. And then I always like running Dwarven Tomb. This Dwarven Tomb I think of as Ditto from like Pokemon, where it's just it's another copy of a blue card in your discard pile. So that can be a Northern Tracker, that can be a Ancient Matin, that can be a Hasty Stroke, that can be anything and everything you want it to be. And so this also combos super well with Eowyn because you can discard a card, and if you need it later, you can pull it back with the Dwarven Tomb. That is probably a last-ditch effort and not something that I would run a huge... or run really often, but there you go. Okay, so we got Dwarven Tombs, Hasty Stroke. We're good there. This is our card draw. Ancient Matin's our card draw. We'll also probably grab some card draw from Lore. Gladrium Greeting is an excellent card to lower our threat. We're going to be really good with resources, so Gladrium Greetings, we're going to lower our threat by 6. That's going to be great. Unexpected Courage works so well with Denethor. So let's run some Unexpected Courages. So this is, me saying that everything's kind of a feedback loop, and so it kind of all is working together and trying to all happen at the same time. Unexpected Courage times 5. Hey, Beast, how's it going? Yes, I love Unexpected Courage, and Unexpected Courage with Denethor. Like, I feel like they messed up with Denethor. I don't know if they messed up. I feel like Denethor is really strong because it's not limit once per round. So you can do it 4 times with Unexpected Courage. You can run Unexpected Courage and use his ability 4 times and just search for Bomb Tom. Okay, so here's our allies, which we probably need more. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Because we're not going to be wanting to play these unless we have to. And we're not going to be wanting to chump block with these guys. So that's 9, 10, 12, 14, 15 cards. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 2, 4, 6, 26. Oh, here's 2 more allies. 28, 31. So we have 19 cards. And 19 cards to play with. So let's look at some of our let's hop over to lore real quick and see what we got there. I'm just looking at anything else that we want. We may want to run Stargazer. I feel like that would be pretty good. She's just always really good to have around. I'm also just looking for cheap allies that can take a hit. Okay, so let's take a look at our green cards. So let's go Gleowin, Himomoth, some of these unique allies that are just really strong. Gleowin's going to help our card draw situation. Let's grab all my G cards are here. That's why. Gleowin. Himomoth is what I said. Chris Hemsworth, as some people in the Discord call it. Daughter of the Numerel would be kind of interesting to heal 2 damage. We have really low health heroes, so that's kind of probably not great, honestly. Denethor has a 3 defense, and with Unexpected Courage, and then Frodo kind of can save himself. But if we start getting a lot of a lot of minions out there, that can be an issue. We could also look for another Noldor, so like a Gildor. She's not unique. Master of the Forge, probably not. I want to check another Noldor to see if we can run with Elrond's Council. We have another Noldor unique hero, our new unique ally. We do not. We don't. Okay, so Bomber may be interesting. No, it's not. He's not. So Rivendell Minstrel, we may want to just go with more or spirit cards. We can grab a Song of Travel and go really heavy into blue. Let's look for cards. So turn through and draw 2 cards, then discard 1 card from your hand. Rumor of the Earth. The thought of building an Arkham deck is the reason you haven't started Dunwich yet. It's not. Arkham decks aren't too bad. Arkham decks are a lot easier to build than Lord of the Rings decks, I think. So, Rumor the Earth is really good. Protector of Lorien works really well if we have a high card draw, especially with like Eowyn. Shortcut. We honestly might. Spider's Path could be really interesting because there are some really nasty stuff that when they're in the encountered or when they're in the staging area. So Spider's Path could be really interesting. Move any damage from one enemy to an... Ooh, actually this could be really interesting. Move any damage from one enemy to another because Old Man Willow is indestructible. If we put damage on him, then we can move it to someone else when they come out. Asphaleth may just... I'm going to run Asphaleth. Oh wait, no, it has to be a Noldor or Sylvian hero. Never mind. Not going to run Asphaleth. Let's go Theodor's map. Just to mess with the locations. After a location is added to the staging area, attach their Thor's key to that location. While they attach to a location, it gains treat the attached location's printed text box as if blank except for traits. So that seems really good. We'll run 2 of those. And then the map. I don't know if I love the map. Go Peace and Thought, exhaust 2 heroes to draw 5 cards. With Unexpected Courage, that's really nice. Range spikes. If unattached, the ranger spikes in the next eligible enemy that enters the staging area, and players do not make engagement checks against the enemy, and the attached enemy gets -2 threat. That's a really interesting. Ooh, actually we're gonna run Forest Snare. That's gonna be our answer to some of these bad enemies in here. Let's run 3x Forest Snare. I hate some of these enemies. Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8. So we're like really close. Are there any cards that are critical to have? If there are any cards that are critical to have, then the Word of Command is really solid. I may like Peace and Thought just to draw some cards. Or Elrond's Council. We run 2x Elrond's Council. You don't understand the game well enough to logically build a deck. In that situation, what I like to do, or I like to tell people to do, is grab one of the starter decks that looks interesting to you and try it out and run through like maybe like Knight of the Zealot, like the 3-game campaign, to kind of get an idea and have a feel for how they play, and then you can start tweaking your deck to once you understand the game a little bit. Hey Magic Mooseman, how's it going? You have a dumb question. No question is dumb. Marvel Champions question. Since I'm rusty, I played Crossbones and beat us with 1 HP left. So when there's enough scheme to advance in the scenario, do you immediately change it, or do you wait until the top of the phase again and you immediately change it? So whenever you reach the threshold, it immediately switches. Arkham is the only one that you wait for a specific time to check to see if there's enough doom to switch. I feel like I need more allies. I feel like well, I mean, this is a lot of allies. We're in a lot of allies. We got a lot of allies. So let's check blue one more time. Just need 2 cards. We actually may... Stargazer is an interesting play here. Just to kind of help. Stargazer makes you not need as much card draws, because you can really kind of set up what you want. Let's run Stargazer. 2 copies of Stargazer. So there's our deck. So allies are Stargazer, Riversong, Glaowine, Gandalfs. Starting threat is 1724. I'm gonna sub one of these Gandalfs for an Overhill Underhill Gandalf. Okay. Arwen, Beaufort, Lorien Guides, Northern Trackers, Mine are the Iron Hills. Forest Snare is how we're gonna take care of enemies. Thor's Key. Unexpected Courage. Ancient Madness is card draw. And then Gladron Greeting, Dwarven Tomb, Hasty Strokes, Test of Will. I like to double check that I have the right. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Oh, I'm missing 10 cards. I miscounted significantly. That's not good. Jeez. Thanks. So we got so many attachments. It became a powerhouse. Crossbone's attachments can get out of hand very quickly. So this is how you store. Yep. So this is how I do it. I have 1 copy in here, and then over here on my right, I have each card organized alphabetically. So if I'm looking for Elrond's Council, I can go grab an E card. Speaking of, oh wow. Okay, so I have 10 more cards to play with. That's exciting. So let's do. That's really exciting. Let's run another copy of Arwen, and then let's run Elrond's Council. At that point, Fortune or Fate is kind of interesting, because we'll probably have enough money to pay for it. So we need 10. So that's 3. Let's run one more copy of Elrond's Council, because we can run Elrond's Council, and if we don't have it, we can always toss it for Eowyn's ability if we need to. That's not a good use of that, but it isn't a use of that. Let's go grab a Master Forge, because we have a lot of attachments in our deck. Oh, actually no, let's grab some healers. And I'm gonna grab Warden of Healing, because he can heal characters. Let's run 2 of those. Darren's Runes is really good. 2, 4, 6. Let's run. Honestly, we could run Fast Hitch for Frodo. Let's run Fast Hitch for Frodo. And this is me not using Rings DB right now. So like I probably would have searched Hobbit or something like that just to see if there's anything that plays off of Hobbits, like Fast Hitch. So this says attached to a Hobbit character, and then we can exhaust it to ready the attached character. Then let's go. Let's just grab some of these cheap allies over here. Let's go Rittermark's Finest. Actually, we're gonna run Rumor of the Earth. No, that's not. We have Denethor for that. What am I thinking? We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There we go. So that's the deck. Let's and that's kind of the process. So it's a lot of knowing and understanding the cards, which is not easy work. Like that's definitely not easy to do. It does take a little bit of time to understand what all is going on and everything, all the tools that you have, but that's kind of the situation. So we know how we're managing enemies. It's gonna be Forest Snare / Frodo. Frodo can kind of take the hit from enemies. We know how we're drawing cards. It's Ancient Matins. It's Gleowine. It's that's pretty much it. We have Stargazer in there, so we don't need as much card draw because we can set up what we are drawing. We know how we're dealing with treacheries. That's a test of will. We also have Denethor to put out what treacheries or which locations we want. We are running Galadriel's Greeting for threat. We're also starting with a really low threat. We're starting, what did I say, 27 or 24? 8, 17, yeah, 24. So 24 threat. Let's go ahead and just set that up right now. So that's a really low starting threat, so I'm happy with that. What else? What are we doing to get money? We actually don't have we don't have any resource generators, but our cost curve is fairly okay, just thumbing through it without actually using any of the tools. And it's a little bit less critical because we do have 2 spirit cards. What I'm gonna check real quick is what does our cost look like for green? We don't have a lot of green cards in here at all, so let's actually pull these out just so we can kind of get a feel for what green cards we have. And those are kind of expensive. Hemoth and Gleowine. So, and then we always have Gandalf, which is, that's not too bad. Okay, I was thinking about running a Song of Travel to help pay for some of that, but I think we're good. We got cards that are going to play off of our heroes, so I think that kind of covers all of our bases. Let's actually play the game now.